In the summer of 2008, members of the close-knit community of Concord, North Carolina, were stunned when two people were gunned down at a bottling company plant in what appeared to be a random robbery. Despite eyewitnesses who helped police develop a sketch of the suspect, the case went cold for many years. This past week, Concord police announced the arrest of a man who has been living across the country in Washington state. He has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of robbery with a firearm. I'll also discuss the most recent updates to the Murdaugh case out of South Carolina and what led to Alex Murdaugh getting a new trial for the murders of his wife and son. There is much to love about North and South Carolina, but the two states have also had their fair share of violent and senseless crimes over the years. From murders on the Blue Ridge Parkway, in the heart of big cities or sleepy college towns, and along the coastal waters, some of these stories may be new to you. Some may have happened in your town. Some may involve people that are still missing to this day. But all will leave you remembering to always be vigilant about the people you meet and the places you go. I'm Renee Robertson. Please join me for Missing in the Carolinas. Episode 180, Updates on the Sundrop Bottling Company murders in North Carolina and the Murdaugh murders in South Carolina. On June 13, 2008, 59-year-old Donna Barnhart, who worked as an office manager at the Sundrop Bottling Company in Concord, North Carolina, was preparing to leave work early to travel to Myrtle Beach for a family vacation. Sundrop Company President John King, his wife Connie, and their daughter were also on vacation at Oak Island in North Carolina. John was surprised that day to receive a call from another employee at the company asking whether he had seen the news. He had no idea 2 people had been shot and killed by an unidentified suspect. One of the victims, he later learned, was Donna Barnhart, who had worked for the company for 18 years. John immediately got off the phone, telephoned his wife, and drove back to Concord. There, it would be 3 hours before police let him into the scene of the crime. He later learned the other victim was 44-year-old Daryl Wayne Knowles of Concord. Daryl had stopped by Sundrop that morning to drop off a job application while his wife waited in their car. There were 2 other employees in the building that morning, located at Branchview Drive and Cabarrus Avenue, and they were the ones who quickly learned something was wrong when they heard gunshots coming from the front office. Local dispatchers called 911 at 10 a.m. that morning, alerting authorities to the shooting. Around the same time, an eyewitness saw a black male leaving the building carrying what looked like a box. He was described as being between the ages of 25 and 30, around 5 feet 3 inches tall, with shoulder-length dreadlocks. He was wearing blue jeans and a white t-shirt. A North Carolina Highway Patrol helicopter and police dog immediately joined police officers in searching for the suspect. When news of the shooting began to spread throughout town, many businesses in downtown Concord locked their doors for safety. The residents of Concord were stunned and heartbroken when they learned about the 2 victims who appeared only to have been at the wrong place at the wrong time. Donna was a proud and doting grandmother who enjoyed traveling to places like the beach and Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. She was generous with those she loved, hosting Easter egg hunts at her home and leaving notes and special eggs for prizes like televisions. Her obituary highlighted Donna's colorful personality and life. She'd grown up in California, went to church with Red Skelton in her younger years, and babysat for actor Jim Backus, who played the character of Thurston Howell III on the TV show Gilligan's Island. She met John Kennedy before he became president of the United States. She joined the Navy after high school and served for 3 years during the Vietnam War. She worked on military intelligence through the Pentagon and graduated first in her class at Radio Men's School. This was almost unheard of at the time because there were 65 men and 2 women in the school. Donna eventually relocated to Concord with her husband Preston, attended UNC Charlotte, and earned a degree in sociology. She taught at Central Cabarrus and Northwest high schools, eventually landing in her role at Sundrop Bottling Company. Reverend Donnie Tomlin, who was related to Daryl Knowles, said he was a family man who loved sports and hunting. Daryl was a Concord native who had worked as a fiber splicer with the Concord Telephone Company previously. He was married to his wife, Tressie, and they had 2 children and 2 grandchildren. He was also the song leader at the Bright Light Baptist Church in Concord. At the time, Sundrop was known as a small bottling company that was officially founded in 1954. The King family had been involved in running it as far back as 1904, when a man named John Thomas Honeycutt began making soda deliveries in a horse-drawn truck. In 1954, he purchased the Big Jim Bottling Company and the Sundrop Drink. Margaret King, John Honeycutt's niece, took over operations in 1964. She racked up a list of accomplishments in the local community, including being elected the first woman president of the Concord Cabarrus Chamber of Commerce and was the first female member of the North Carolina Bottlers Association. Just a few years prior to the murders, the Charlotte Observer had reported the company had 28 employees, annual gross sales of about $6 million, and produced up to 5,000 cases of soda a day. Police later revealed the gunman had walked into the office, stole an undisclosed amount of money from the petty cash and change from the vending machine, and gunned down Donna and Daryl. On the evening of Friday, June 20th, community members held a prayer vigil for the victims outside the bottling company plant. Officers with the Concord Police planned to stop motorists in the area and pass out flyers asking people who regularly traveled that route to offer up any information they had. In August of 2008, John and Connie King sat for an interview with the Charlotte Observer. John wore a red plastic bracelet on his wrist that read justicefordonna.com, a website which her family had created. Daryl Knowles' widow, 43-year-old Tressie Hackett Knowles, had been arrested the month before on an unrelated charge. Her former employer, Spectrum Sales in Concord, accused her of embezzling more than $60,000 from the company between the years of 2004 and 2008. Tressie was charged with 5 counts of embezzlement. She had worked at Spectrum for 13 years before leaving in February of 2008. By April, the company had noticed financial irregularities and notified the police. In fact, local police were about to charge her for these crimes around the same time her husband was murdered. They initially held off on serving the warrants to her out of respect for her and their grieving family, but eventually they followed through on the indictments. Up until that point, Tressie Knowles had no criminal record in the state of North Carolina. In the Charlotte Observer article, the Kings mentioned they had postponed a fundraiser planned for the Knowles family after learning about the embezzlement charges, but held no ill will towards Tressie Knowles. She has been through so much, Connie said. I don't want people to forget what happened to Donna and Daryl and the people that they were. Concord Police Chief said although it was an odd chain of events, they didn't believe Tressie's charges were related to the shooting at Sundrop Bottling Company. That September, the city of Concord announced a $75,000 reward for information leading to arrests and convictions in the double homicide, and Governor Mike Easley added a $10,000 reward from the state on top of that. The same month, police released a sketch of a man they said could be linked to the double homicide in Concord. They didn't disclose whether or not they believed the killings were random or if they had zeroed in on a motive. I looked at court records related to Tressie Knowles' embezzlement case, and it appears as though she was found guilty and ordered to pay back the money she stole from Spectrum. Over the years, she has been in and out of the courts trying to get the judgment overturned, and the company, in turn, is still trying to work out restitution as of several years ago. America's Most Wanted featured the crime and suspect on their show in the months following the murders. But in the years that followed, no new leads other than the initial suspect description and sketch turned up. Until this past week. On May 21st, a 43-year-old man named Johnny Steven Talbert was arrested in Port Angeles in Washington state and charged with the murders of Donna Barnhart and Daryl Knowles and 1 count of robbery with a firearm. It's been almost 18 years since that devastating day in 2008. According to reporting by news outlet WBTV, Concord police said a big break in the case occurred in late 2025 after what they called meticulous re-examination of evidence and the pursuit of previously undeveloped leads. Concord detectives flew out to Port Angeles to continue their investigation, and 3 days later, they arrested Talbert. Detectives believe Talbert entered the place of business to steal money, and the 2 people in the front office were shot during the course of that robbery. Talbert will be extradited back to North Carolina. Of course, the first thing I did was look at that police sketch of the suspect from the early months of the investigation. I could definitely see a resemblance between the suspect sketch and photos throughout the years of Johnny Steven Talbert. Talbert has been no stranger to crime while living in Washington. Since November of 2011, the local police department had made approximately 288 contacts with the man, including 14 arrests. Of those 14 arrests, 2 involved felony charges. The Concord Police Department has asked that anyone with additional information on the Sundrop murder case call 704-920-5000 or 704-93-CRIME to remain anonymous. Before we continue, let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsors.
This is Lived to Tell.
He had taken the knife and just plunged it directly into my chest.
The podcast where I talk to some of the bravest people.
If he pulls into the woods, he'll kill me. Why else would you pull into the woods?
Who have been through the most horrifying things.
Are we in the volcano right now?
And know that survival doesn't end with the rescue.
I was depressed out of this world.
You know, the least I can do is be the voice for all those who do not survive.
I'm Caitlin Van Mall. Listen to Live to Tell wherever you get your podcasts.
I've been struggling with my weight for years, and once I hit my 40s and the dreaded perimenopause, as my weight continued to increase, I made excuse after excuse. I work out all the time. I get in my steps every day. I eat healthy most of the time. Well, most of the time wasn't cutting it. I'd had success with Weight Watchers in the past and decided to give it a try again. I quickly learned it was the mindless snacking I was doing, mostly in the evenings, that was contributing to my weight gain. Weight Watchers makes it easy to track foods and meals on their app, and the numerous plans that they have are designed to fit your needs, whether you're just looking to learn more about nutrition, lose a few pounds, or embark on a program that includes GLP-1 options. I've been doing their core program for 2.5 months and have taken advantage of all the 0-point foods like eggs, Greek yogurt, turkey, chicken, fresh vegetables, and more. I love that the app also helps you track your macros, which is something it didn't include in the past, and provides quick and easy recipes. Having lost 10 pounds, I'm almost to my goal weight, and now I'm feeling great. Weight Watchers doesn't tell you what to eat, they tell you how to eat, and I never feel restricted. I eat what I love, and you can too. Check out my referral link in the show notes for your chance to receive your first 3 months free with select plan purchase, not valid for WW Med Plus plans and services. And now, let's get back to the show. The final thing I want to talk about today is the recent update to the Alex Murdaugh murder conviction. I've covered this case out of South Carolina extensively before, and I'll share those related episodes in the show notes. On May 13th, the South Carolina Supreme Court granted Alex a new trial in the murders of his wife Maggie and his son Paul. His defense team had argued that Colton County Court Clerk Becky Hill tampered with the jury in the original murder trial. Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were shot and murdered on the night of June 7, 2021 on the family hunting property Moselle. Despite extensive searches, investigators never found a murder weapon, which they believed to be an AR-style assault rifle. The world soon learned the Murdaugh's youngest son Paul had been involved in a deadly boat crash that resulted in the death of 19-year-old Mallory Beach in February of 2019, and the Murdaugh family had attempted to cover up the fact that Paul had been operating the boat extremely drunk. Mallory's family had sued Alex Murdaugh in a civil court case, and he was ordered to turn over his financial records as part of that discovery. What not many people knew at the time was that Alex had been embezzling money from his law firm for many years, and had been involved in many shady financial dealings that were about to come to light right before Paul and Maggie were murdered. Alex Murdaugh later admitted he had lied to police about his alibi. He was arrested and charged with the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh. His trial began in Walterboro, South Carolina in the spring of 2023, was televised through court TV each day, and drew spectators from across the country. The jury learned about Alex's financial crimes, his addiction to opioids that he'd been battling for years, and saw evidence that he'd lied about being at the dog kennels the night his wife and son were shot and killed. A video on Paul's phone showed that Alex had been there just minutes before they died. The guns used to shoot Paul and Maggie appeared to have come from the Murdaugh home, but they were never found. Alec was sentenced to life in prison after being found guilty of Paul and Maggie's murders. He was sentenced to an additional 40 years for his federal financial crimes. But Alec's defense team soon learned Colton County Clerk of Court Becky Hill had engaged in some questionable behavior. A colleague of Hill's said the clerk repeatedly talked about wanting to write a book about the Murdaugh trial to pay for a lake house, and that a guilty verdict would help. Alec's defense attorney said Hill told jurors not to trust him when he testified in his own defense, had private discussions with the jury foreperson, and pressured the jurors to reach a quick verdict. She also gave jury members business cards from reporters during the trial and traveled to New York City with 3 of the jurors to do interviews. A few months after the trial ended, she published a book titled Behind the Doors of Justice: The Murdaugh Murders. In their unanimous ruling, Supreme Court justices wrote that Hill egregiously attacked Murdaugh's credibility and his defense, thus triggering the presumption of prejudice. The book was later pulled from publication after the journalist who worked with Hill on it accused her of plagiarism. She had co-authored the book with a journalist named Neil Gordon. But when Gordon reviewed thousands of Hill's emails that were released to reporters through the Freedom of Information Act, he found an excerpt from an article by BBC reporter Holly Honderick. The text of that article matched a 12-page passage in Behind the Doors of Justice that Hill had produced. When Gordon asked her about it, she admitted the plagiarism and said she resorted to using it because of the deadline pressures for the book. Hill eventually pleaded guilty to charges of obstruction, perjury, and misconduct in office. She was sentenced to a year of probation and resigned from her position as clerk of court. No matter what the outcome of this new trial, Alex Murdaugh will remain behind bars. He's currently serving a 27-year state prison term for stealing $12 million from his clients and law firm, and a 40-year federal term for wire and bank fraud and money laundering. Alec has filed a civil rights suit against Becky Hill, claiming he suffered $600,000 in monetary damages as a result of her actions. His attorney, Jim Griffin, has stated none of the money would go to his client directly. The defense team, which includes Dick Harpootlian and Philip Barber, says the main purpose of this lawsuit is to investigate the scope of Hill's actions as he faces new trial. Harpootlian believes Alec's retrial has to look a lot different from his first one. The defense team believes evidence related to Alec's financial crimes went far beyond what was necessary and gave rise to unfair prejudice. He said, on retrial, that will not be permitted. I'll keep you updated as details of the new murder trial are released. This brings us to the conclusion of this episode of Missing in the Carolinas. If you enjoyed this episode, please do me a favor and give it a 5-star rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're also on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok, so please like our pages and get started on a discussion of the missing people profiled on the show. Do you know of a missing persons case in North or South Carolina that you think should be covered? Email me at missinginthecarolinas@gmail.com with any details you can share. Cover art for this podcast was designed by Macintosh Multimedia. All episodes are researched and written by me, Renee Robertson, with sound editing provided by Daniel Robertson. Jenna Browse is the social media coordinator and research assistant. Thanks so much for listening.